Welcome to the 2014 University High School Senior Debate. Over the 37-year history of UHS, this event has become something of a rite of passage for all UHS graduates. As you already see, the seniors have done a tremendous amount of work in this mock election project, which culminates with the annual Senior Debate. UHS juniors, you are the electorate. Please pay close attention today. Tomorrow you will be asked to cast your vote for the party that you think did the best job during the debate and the project in its entirety. Tomorrow, voting will take place in room LL3 before school from 7:30 to 8, during second lunch, and after school from 3:15 to 3:45. Votes will be counted tomorrow at 3:45. Juniors, again, please take time to vote. Before I introduce our special guest moderator, let me summarize the format of the debate. The debate will have 2 rounds, foreign and domestic. During each round, some questions will be asked by the moderator, others will be inter-party questions. We will have a brief break between the 2 rounds. This year, the debate will take place during periods 1, 2, and 3, and most likely part of period 4 as well. Remember, the seniors here are earning a grade. This is part of a class project. Please have fun and enjoy the proceedings. However, please show respect to the participants. Bells will ring during the course of the debate. If you must leave, please do so quietly so as not to interrupt the proceedings. Otherwise, please remain seated until the break between the foreign policy and domestic policy rounds. At the end of the debate, please remain seated for some concluding remarks. Then, most likely, you will be dismissed to your 4th period class. Before we begin, I'd like to give special thanks to the students who serve on the stage crew. They have spent many hours setting up the auditorium for this event. And without a doubt, without the stage crew, we would not have this event without them. With that said, I would like now to introduce our special guest moderator. Each year, we invite a prominent figure in the Tucson community to act as our moderator. This year is no exception. Our moderator is the new superintendent of the Tucson Unified School District. H.T. Sánchez is the superintendent of TUSD. He is responsible for the oversight, coordination, and management of the district's executive leadership team. Mr. Sánchez has worked in public education for 15 years and has been an elementary, middle, and high school principal. Prior to assuming leadership of TUSD, he served as an interim superintendent in Ector County Independent School District. He has also served as a district bilingual ESL services director and instructional support services executive director at Tyler Independent School District, and as accountability special populations assistant superintendent and chief staff deputy superintendent for the ECISD. He has made scholarly contributions at the international and state level conferences and presented research studies to universities and has been published on various educational topics. Dr. Sánchez also serves as an adjunct professor for Texas A&M University in Commerce, where he teaches at the graduate school level, doctoral level classes in law and ethics and philosophy. He holds a doctorate in education from Texas A&M University Commerce, a master's of education from Sul Ross State University, and a Bachelor of Arts from Angelo State University. Please join me in welcoming Dr. H.T. Sánchez.
At this point, I would like to ask for our party chair opening statements to begin. We'll begin with party time.
In the words of Nelson Mandela, we must use time wisely and forever realize that time is always right to do right. Instead of focusing on the past or what we hope to do in the future, we believe in the time we have right now. Here at Party Time, our policies are innovative, reliable, and responsible. By solving the current debt crisis, we will put America on the right path to a successful and economically stable future. The United States will be a world leader through collaboration and diplomacy rather than forceful action. We believe it's time to invest in our nation and create opportunities for every citizen, leading to a more educated, sustainable, and equal America. Now is the time for a change in policy. Now is the time for a change in the status quo. You are invited to the party of a lifetime. Welcome to party time.
At this point in time, I would like to invite Illuminati for their party chair opening statements.
We are the Illuminati, a secret society founded for the purpose of enlightenment, an idea suggested by our name, which is Latin for enlightened. We represent the culmination of years of thought and exploration. With the same ideals as the original Enlightenment thinkers who founded our organization, we promise to bring you the equality and liberty everyone has been yearning for. The humanism of our founders has endured through the centuries, inspiring us to create policies with a focus on you, the people. We'll include all individuals in our newly imagined nation, one that will prosper like never before. With your help and support, we will illuminate the potential of our country, allowing it to become a steady, stable, and sustainable place for business, learning, and technology. Now is the time to end the corruption of our state and revolutionize the stagnant policies that have held us in place for so long. Anawam atatam wenarit. A new era has come.
Next, for opening statements, Party of the Ages.
Since the beginning, man has wanted more. To have more, to know more, and to be more. The natural desire of people to discover and to understand what is beyond them has been the driving force behind human innovation since the inception of mankind. The world we live in today is the result of thousands of years of shared visions, and it represents the accumulation of human thought since the beginning of time. Our purpose is to make bigger the pool of thoughts. Our goal is to not only be led by the great people of our past, but to extend a hand to the great people of our future in the hopes that they may go above and beyond what we achieve in our lifetimes. It is for the pursuit of this goal that Party of the Ages offers itself as a stepping stone from the world of today to the world of tomorrow.
At this point, for opening statements, I'd like to invite to the podium Elysium.
Welcome to your Elysium. Not only do our policies work to propel the United States into a future world of innovation, but we effectively mitigate the problems of the present. Listen closely to the arguments in today's debate. No other party policies will be able to ensure long-term equality and sustainability while maintaining a strong sense of morality. At Elysium, our policies have been carefully made to ensure that they are both economically responsible and morally upright. Over the past 3 weeks, you've seen our campaign display in the lower level. You've seen it continually fixed, changed, and evolved so that each new version is better than before. Much like our display, Elysium takes the policies of our current government system and improves them on a new level. Our political platform is the summation of these policies. This is the future of the United States and the future of Elysium. Thank you.
To conclude opening statements on foreign policy, I would like to invite to the podium Party Light.
In these past 230 years, and indeed since its conception, the United States of America has transformed into a beacon for democratic ideals, opportunity, and prosperity. Though we as a nation have made great strides in the race towards true equality and progress, there is still much that must change. In the year 2014, corporations are still technically part of we the people of the United States. The number of deaths related to drug overdose is on the rise, with even more of these drug addicts being made enemies of the state. In the year 2014, there remains a disproportionate number of African Americans in the prison system, and we, the people, are burdened with hugely inflated prices for basic healthcare treatments. Party Light is shedding light on the real issues. Party Light realizes that the era for change is now. Party Light is bringing the light to you.
At this point, each party has 1 minute to narrow their focus to foreign policy specific opening statements. We will begin with Illuminati.
The Illuminati are the heralds of a new revolution in American foreign policy, a revolution that will result in mutually greater success and camaraderie around the world. With our theme of humanism, we advocate a focus on the countries that need help, allowing them to develop and become effective world contributors. This is the new frontier. The Illuminati will work to produce not only a successful nation, but a successful world, one that is safe and productive for all. Thank you.
Next, we have Party of the Ages for foreign policy opening statements.
Iraq, Syria, Israel, these are the issues that plague us. Our party will deal with these issues to promote peace and prosperity for all, while decreasing the amount of feelings from the global society that feels that the United States has overstepped its bounds militarily. We, by doing that, will reduce the amount that American lives are lost, and we will promote peace. For those that know us, you know that our ambitions are great. And for those that don't know us, we are Party of the Ages, and we will settle for nothing less than excellence. Thank you.
Elysium, you are next for your foreign policy opening statement.
The U.S. has historically ruled our foreign policy with views of supremacy and this idea that we are better than the rest of the world. You cannot hold a shaking hand with an iron fist. Realizing this, Elysium proposes a solution of community. When the world feels responsible for itself as a whole, it works to better itself as a whole. With all of our component parts coming together with the feelings of understanding and cooperation, we feel that we can better lead to a tomorrow. Solving the symptoms of the problems today does not cure the disease of tomorrow. Let our Elysium improve not only the United States, but the world as a whole in the sense of responsibility. Let our Elysium be your Elysium.
Party Light, you have the stage for 1 minute.
Party Light is inspired by the concepts our name represents: innovation and understanding. Our cooperative global policy emphasizes working more closely with the United Nations and non-governmental organizations to further American interests abroad. We plan to build upon current successes, such as a temporary agreement that has halted the development of Iran's nuclear weapons program. The strong trade relationships between the United States and European Union, and current nuclear disarmament treaties with Russia. However, Party Light realizes there are many aspects of current American foreign policy that are quite frankly broken. The war on drugs in Latin America, the proposed solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict that is based on the arbitrary 1967 Green Line border, and the United States embargo against Cuba. All need to be changed to be effective in the lighter and brighter 21st century. Thank you.
To conclude foreign policy opening statements, party time, you have 1 minute.
In the past few years, we have seen an increase around the world in the amount of uprisings and protests against social and political injustices. These show that people are realizing that the norms of the past no longer have a place in the world. We need to move forward or we will be left behind. We need to cast away the idea that the United States is the policeman of the world. We need to adopt a diplomatic mindset where we collaborate with other nations on the most prevalent issues today. We cannot keep hoping that tomorrow will be better. We need to realize the issues of today and ensure that tomorrow will be better by fixing them. Time has changed the world and made it what it is today. And we know that with our policies and your support, time will change the world and make it a better and more peaceful place for everyone to live. Thank you.
The next section involves random topic prepared questions. The first question is for Party of the Ages. After the question has been asked, you'll have 1 minute to respond. Then Elysium will have 1 minute to rebut the response. The question for Party of the Ages is, currently, the United States is the highest ranked recipient of trafficked humans, mostly received in California, New York, and Texas. The United States has previously addressed this issue through the TVPA and the Human Trafficking Department in the FBI, both of which have proven only minimally successful. How does your party plan on addressing the investigation and mending of a globally influenced issue such as this? You have 1 minute.
Part of the Ages believes that we should pursue a policy of non-interventionism. Trafficking abroad is not our issue, and we will delegate this to the United Nations. Doing so, we're increasing the budget for the United Nations to $8 billion so they can deal with this more effectively. Domestically, we will still delegate it to the FBI and Homeland Security, but improve interagency communication to increase the efficiency of the pursuits to stop trafficking. We believe that by putting our foot abroad and trying to stop it, we are intervening and overstepping our bounds. We do believe that we should protect the rights of those and the safety of those who are trafficked once they're here, and that's what we're doing.
I think we were all waiting for that. Elysium, you have 1 minute to rebut.
For something that is not an issue, 17,840 confirmed cases of human trafficking entered the United States last year. I like to think that that might be a problem. Only 1,000 of those recipients received a T visa in the first place, which means only 1,000 of those recipients received any care or realization that they were victimized and that the United States didn't do anything to help them when they were brought here. Elysium instead aims to improve what we call the New Start visa, which will aim to provide education, housing, and food, as well as work opportunities for victims of human trafficking, because it is such a proponent issue in the U.S.
The next next random topic prepared question is for Elysium. You'll have 1 minute to address the question. Party light, you'll have 1 minute to rebut the response. The question is, since 2011, the Syrian civil war has been an ongoing violent conflict among various rebel groups and the Syrian government with no clear victor in sight. If elected, who will your party support in the Syrian conflict to attain a just and lasting peace in that war-torn country?
Over 100,000 people have already been killed in the Syrian civil war, many of them civilian. At Elysium, we will not stand idly by while more civilians die each day in the Syrian civil war. Elysium recognizes that the conflict in Syria is no longer simply a civil war, but rather a humanitarian crisis. As such, we will not exacerbate this conflict by sending in more military intervention and by providing economic and military aid to either the rebel groups or the Assad regime. Instead, Elysium proposes a policy of solely humanitarian aid to the people of Syria, so that we can ensure that the people of Syria are the ones who receive the aid that they deserve. Instead of furthering this conflict by intervening in any way, by providing aid to any specific group, we will provide aid to the people of Syria. Because at Elysium, we believe that everyone deserves the right to equality and to self-determination, and that everyone has the right to live the life that they deserve with the humanitarian aid that they need.
Party line, you have 1 minute to rebut.
Party Life also recognizes the severity of the humanitarian crisis that is happening in Syria. However, the question that we have about Elysium's policy is how are you helping the people of Syria without helping either side in the conflict? The people of Syria are the ones that are fighting. Party Light is hopeful about the current negotiations that are happening through the United Nations between the Assad regime and the Syrian National Coalition, and will recognize a provisional government if one originates from these negotiations. We are going to stop over the next 6 months sales of weapons to the rebel groups in Syria, as some of them are Muslim extremist groups and are not in line with American interests. However, we are going to continue to provide humanitarian and economic support to the Syrian rebels, because the Assad regime is the issue here in Syria that needs to be taken out of power by the international community. Thank you.
Party light, you have the next question. Party time, you will have 1 minute to rebut the response. The question is, as part of the United States war on drugs that began in the 1970s, the American government spends hundreds of millions of dollars to target drug cartels in countries including Mexico and Colombia. How does your party plan to address the illicit drug trade?
Party Light recognizes that the current war on drugs has been completely ineffective. Police means do almost nothing to stop the drug cartels' control in Mexico. There's too much corruption in the Mexican government to effectively attack the cartels. In addition to this, when key members of the Tijuana and Gulf cartels were recently arrested, violence didn't decrease, it increased, because other cartels fought to take their positions. This shows us that police means clearly aren't working, and after 30 years of failure, we need to try something new. As all of you juniors have heard, Party Light has a new innovative drug policy which attacks from the demand side. By making it so drugs that aren't harmful are controlled by corporations in America, we can make it so the cartel no longer has power. If the cartel isn't making money anymore, they're not going to be able to control Mexico anymore. And we'll be able to weaken our cartel enough that the Mexican government will actually be able to take care of them. Instead of slapping a band-aid on the issue, we're finding a new economic approach to actually solve this problem that's plagued Mexico and America. Thank you.
Party time, you have 1 minute to rebut.
To address the war on drugs, Party Time will be legalizing marijuana for adults 18 years and older. However, at Party Time, we do not believe in legalizing other drugs, as we believe in the health and safety of all our citizens. Currently, marijuana trafficking, illegal drug trade results in 60% of the cartel drug trade. The more important issue here is how to decrease the demand and decrease the supply. By legalizing marijuana, Party Time will be able to decrease the supply for the illegal drugs, and as a result, we'll be decreasing our spending for the illegal drug trade, and will decrease our spending for the war on drugs. Our tax of marijuana will increase our revenue by $8.7 billion and will also decrease regulatory costs. However, keep in mind that Party Time is not legalizing other drugs, as we believe in the health and safety of our nation.
Party Time. You have the next question. Illuminati, you will be provided 1 minute to rebut the response. The question is, sectarian violence in Iraq has increased substantially following the removal of all American soldiers in 2011. Many sources from within the country claim that Iraq's second-term Prime Minister, Nouri al-Maliki, a Shiite Muslim, is responsible for recent violent attacks against the country's Sunni Muslim minority, including a September 1 attack by gunmen on Camp Ashraf, north of Baghdad, that killed 52 of its members. How does your party plan to stop the Iraqi government from perpetuating sectarian violence of this sort?
Here at Party Time, we realize that sectarian violence has become an extremely prevalent issue, especially in the Middle East. Regarding Iraq, Party Time believes that we should continue our support to Iraq. Although some people may not agree with a policy like this because they believe we should completely remove ourselves from Iraq, Party Time believes this is not appropriate at this time. Iraq has been dependent on the aid of the United States for far too long to feasibly be independent. Therefore, we will be keeping advisory troops in Iraq to help these people accomplish their goals, and as well as going against sectarian violence as we have seen in Iraq in the past. We believe that a policy like this is practical and will help Iraq on their way to becoming independent from United States aid in the future. Thank you.
Illuminati, you have 1 minute.
Illuminati realizes that the conflict in Iraq has gone for far too long. We are not keeping our troops there. However, we are keeping military advisors in Iraq to make sure that the region will remain stable. This region in fact will be financially aided by the United States so that they will not become an unstable region. At the Illuminati, we believe that our efforts should not go to waste. Therefore, instead of just simply remaining our troops in Iraq, we will provide them with financial assistance as well as military advisors to make sure that their government and their officials and military is strong enough to support their own internal problems. Thank you.
Illuminati, you have the next question. Party of Ages, you have 1 minute to rebut the response. Delving deeper into the issue of the Middle East, Afghanistan and Iraq are both regions filled with instability and religious and ethnic tension. The U.S. has spent trillions of dollars and thousands of lives installing a representative form of government. After the virtually complete troop withdrawal in 2011, how does your party plan on guaranteeing long-term stability and making sure our efforts do not go to waste without a strong military presence?
At the Illuminati, we recognize that our efforts will not go to waste in Iraq and Afghanistan. In Iraq and Afghanistan, we currently have troops there. In Afghanistan, we have 36,500 troops in the region and 2,500 NATO troops. We realize that while we will decrease them, we will also provide stability in the region. In terms of financial aid, we will be giving them to the government in terms of military as well as infrastructure and restructure for their own nation so that they can improve their own internal problems. In terms of military advisors, we will train their military so they can deal with their own internal problems. Thank you.
Party of the Ages, you have 1 minute to rebut the response.
Here at Party of the Ages, we are taking a similar approach to the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. In Iraq, we're removing all our troops that are remaining, and in Afghanistan, we will reduce our military presence. That is not to say that we're abandoning them. In Iraq, we will continue sending military aid, military technology and military advisors so they can train the Iraqi forces to protect their own nation. Thus, that it's in congruence with our philosophy of non-interventionism. In Afghanistan, we will keep a reduced presence to do the same. We will provide long-term stability by doing so, and in the future, we hope to reduce our presence completely in the Middle East, to not overstep our bounds and get the resentment from the global community that we get right now. Thank you.
The next section will involve inter-party questions. I will begin with Elysium. Elysium, you will have the opportunity to ask a question of a different party of your choosing. The party will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond, and then Elysium, you will be provided with 1 minute to rebut the response.
Party of the Ages states in its platform that it wishes to become leaders that pave the way for progress. However, it also states in its platform that the U.S. will not play a prominent role in UN non-military foreign aid. How can Party of the Ages simultaneously expect to maintain the U.S. stance as a world leader while also taking a hands-off approach to foreign affairs, and indeed even taking a hands-off approach to humanitarian aid?
You have 1.5 minutes to respond.
I really don't know where you got the part that we are not taking part of the UN's non-military aid, as it clearly states in our platform that we will. We are increasing the budget for the UN by $8 billion so they can handle more responsibilities. So we are being the leaders in paving the way for prosperity and peace, non-militarily. So as to that, I don't know where you got that from. Here at Party of the Ages, we believe that we are setting an example by deferring more responsibilities to the United Nations and staying away from countries militarily. We hope that other countries will do the same, and in this pursuit, we will bring more peace and stability to all nations, not just the United States. So, I would ask you what you are doing. If you are not doing the same as we are already. Thank you.
I guess we'll get to hear the answer to that final question. You have 1 minute to rebut.
On the contrary, Party of the Ages platform specifically states that you will support any collaborative policies spearheaded by other nations, rather than leading these initiatives yourselves. Moreover, you state that you are acting with restraint in regards to humanitarian aid in the United Nations. At Elysium, we recognize that the United States has pursued an Amerocentric, supremacist point of view in our foreign policy for too long. And as such, we are pursuing a humanitarian rather than militant or political approach to foreign policy. We will fund the United Nations just as Party of the Ages is, but moreover, we will also act as leaders in the global community by ensuring that we provide the humanitarian aid through our Latin American, human trafficking, and other international initiatives that will allow us to become moral and humanitarian leaders in the global community, unlike Party of the Ages.
Party line. You may now ask a question of another party. They will have 1.5 minutes to respond, and then you will have 1 minute to rebut their response.
This question is for party time. In Pakistan alone, the United States, in 317 drone strikes since 2008, has killed 2,160 Islamic militants and only 67 civilians. How does your party justify phasing out drone use and instead deploying ground troops to target terrorists, thus exposing U.S. troops and civilians to the dangers of armed combat, when drones have been highly successful in American counter-terrorism efforts?
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond to the question.
efforts need to change. We believe that by decreasing our use of drones and mildly increasing the amount of ground teams that we use to target specific terrorists will be successful. When using ground teams, we are able to collect more information instead of just striking out these terrorists, which will help us in the future. Additionally, drones have been killing civilians, and although the number is minimal, this can lead to more people joining terrorist efforts because they believe the United States is against them. Additionally, many international counterterrorism agencies have refused to work with the United States on our counterterrorism efforts because of our use of drones. We believe that drones have been successful, but we also believe that we need to pursue a policy where we can work with the rest of the world in our counterterrorism efforts instead of doing this alone. Thank you.
Party Life, you have 1 minute to respond.
Party Life, in response to Party Time's stance on drones, would like to question what about drone use is not specific or does not provide enough information, because drones are a 21st century technology that are incredibly intelligent as far as weapons go. We would also wonder how sending in ground troops will not also jeopardize our relations with countries such as Pakistan. We would like you to consider the cost that it would be to deploy, supply, remove, treat injuries for, and treat the recovery of armed troops that are sent on the ground if they are to replace drones, and also the collateral damage of on-the-ground conflict, because every time there's an armed engagement between combatants on the ground and civilians, more people will be killed on both sides. We need to prioritize American lives, because the point of these counterterrorism efforts is as a preventative measure to protect American lives. So their policy to send in Americans, thus risking American lives, is totally contradictory. Thank you.
Party time. You may select a party to ask a question to. That party will have 1.5 minutes to respond.
Our question is for Elysium. Some people believe that the structure of the United Nations, more specifically that of the Security Council, is in desperate need of reform, since the structure has remained virtually the same since its creation in 1946. In your platform, you suggest the suspension of Russia as a member of the Security Council if they do not comply with some of your proposals. You state this will allow for the procurement of bills passed in this council, if not for the veto power extended by the Russian Federation as granted to P5 nations. Does Elysium really believe that removing Russia is all that is required to reform the Security Council and P5 system to make not only the Security Council run more smoothly, but the United Nations run more smoothly?
First and foremost, Elysium would like to reiterate that that is the last solution we would like to take against Russia as a nation. Firstly, we would like to better our relations with the Russian Federation. However, in the event that that doesn't happen, it is stated in the UN Charter that you can remove the veto power temporarily from a P5 nation if the other P5 nations agree to this. Now, you might think that this might be something difficult to do with China being such a close friend and ally of the Russian Federation. However, in improving our political stance and diplomacy with China, we feel that it can be realistic to remove Russia's veto power temporarily. Furthermore, we also believe that with the last 7 bills that the United States has proposed to pass in the Security Council of the UN, only Russia has vetoed them, and only Russia has had any other solutions that they claim would work. So, Elysium does believe that removing Russia's veto power would allow for the propensity of passing bills in the Security Council, as well as improved relations between communications in that council and the United Nations as a whole.
Here at Party Time, we do not believe that by removing one nation from the P5 that we can make it run more smoothly. Instead, we propose a new plan to the United Nations regarding the Security Council. The Security Council is one of the most influential committees in the United Nations, as many important
documents and legislation passes through this committee. This committee consists of China, Russia, the United States, France, and the United Kingdom. And these 5 nations have remained members of the Security Council since 1946, and Party Time believes that it is time to change that. In the United Nations, we propose reforms regarding the Security Council and the 5-seat system. We would like to propose to the United Nations a system that is more fair and equitable and reflects the world stage today. We would like to create more permanent seats on the Security Council to allow more equitable representation, as well as temporarily revoking our veto powers in the United Nations and the Security Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Illuminati, you may select a party to ask your question to. The party will have 1.5 minutes to respond.
This is for Elysium. In your platform, you claim that a decreasing dependence on Chinese trade, replaced with a focus on domestic production, will help to stabilize our economy. However, the massive investment of the Chinese and U.S. companies in capital, as well as our importation of Chinese goods, are a boon to our country, allowing us to make a fortune every year in foreign trade. First of all, how exactly do you plan to decrease this trade by 5%? And if this goal is truly achievable, considering the fact that both our economies will regardlessly grow, how do you plan on remaining diplomatically friendly with China while at the same time acting as if we do not trust their economy?
You have 1.5 minutes to respond.
The United States' reliance on Chinese trade is approaching dangerous levels. In the event that China decides to no longer be friendly with the United States economy will crumble. Elysium views this as a problem. There should not be such an unequitable ratio with import-export that we entirely rely on another nation. We are decreasing trade slowly by 5% over the next 10 years. In relation to how we propose to remain diplomatically friendly with China, we are removing troops from Taiwan and surrounding Asian nations that China has outwardly stated makes it uncomfortable. It's important to maintain good political relations with China in order to improve our relations with North Korea and the Russian Federation. However, placing our entire economy dependent on the imports of another country is totally irresponsible. Instead, we plan on increasing fair trade with South America and Latin America and bringing the human aspect back into the economy, as Chinese economy and worker conditions are an atrocity that the United States has for too long condoned and, in fact, encouraged.
Illuminati, you have 1 minute.
Over the last few decades, the trend has been towards globalization. We're moving from single economies to a world economy. And it's important that we recognize this in our foreign policy. Removing trade with China will not solve an imbalance of trade. First of all, it's a 5% decrease. Our economies are going to grow in the next 10 years. We would like to see an increase of Chinese trade. We are not dangerously dependent on this trade. The countries rely on each other as part of this world economy. The humanism aspect of it. Yes, there are issues in the Chinese economy. We've seen a massive growth without a growth in workers' rights. This needs to be fixed, and the way we can do this is by allowing China to continue to grow. We saw the same thing in the United States during the 1920s. What were our factory conditions like back then? Look at how far we've come. Look at the growth of China. They are following a similar trajectory, a similar trend, and it is crucial for us to maintain our trade with them.
For this section of the debate, Party of the Ages will have the final opportunity to ask the party a question.
We are asking a similar question to Party Time as Party Light asked, but with an emphasis on the boots on the ground. So your party wants to implement a plan where you will decrease the use of drones and increase the use of ground teams. You claim that this will help curb civilian casualties, but increasing the use of soldiers in populated areas where ambushes occur more frequently and are more deadly will also increase the amount of dead American soldiers abroad. Do you think the lives of American soldiers are less valuable than foreign civilians?
You have 1.5 minutes to respond.
Here at Party Time, we stand by our counter-terrorism policy, and although these two parties have attacked it, we believe that it will be effective. We believe that ground teams are already in use, and we will not be increasing them by much.
These ground teams will be able to collect data to the areas that they go. And we realize that although to some this may seem like a policy where more American soldiers will die, this is not the case. Drones are, they're excellent technology that we have really worked to develop here in the United States. However, we need to make sure that we use those drones responsibly, and we do not put the international community at risk. We believe that by slightly increasing the amount of ground teams that we use in situations that would be safe for these ground teams, we will have a more effective counterterrorism policy. We believe that decreasing the use of drones will cause other international counterterrorism agencies to want to work with the United States instead of going against us. We believe that a policy like this will help us in our future counterterrorism efforts not just for the United States, but for the entire world. Thank you.
Party of the Ages, you have 1 minute.
Here at Party of the Ages, we believe that as you guys are party time, it's time for you to get up. Mic check.
Go ahead, come up here.
Hello, mic check. Here at Party of the Ages, we believe that since you guys are party time, it's time for you to get up to speed with modern life. One, it is not cheaper to put more boots on the ground. The cost of maintaining an entire unit in combat readiness, feeding them, arming them, paying for their veterans benefits is much higher than using drones. But let's ignore the financial aspect here. This is human lives we're talking about. Party time is going to put more soldiers in harm's way. War is never safe. You never know when you're on the ground whether or not there's going to be an ambush, especially in a populated area. Party time will have more American soldiers killed. Here at Party of the Ages, we are pursuing a foreign policy of non-interventionism. We will take boots off the ground. We do not want to police the world and see more young Americans dead, and we will pursue our policy of non-interventionism until every American soldier can come home safely.
At this point, we're prepared to move into our second section of random topic prepared questions. I'd like to begin with Party Light. Elysium, you will have an opportunity to rebut the response provided by Party Light to this question. The United States and European Union have the largest bilateral trade relationship in the world and the greatest influence on the global economy as a joint entity, contributing to about half of the world's gross domestic product at about 30% of all world investments. How does your party plan to strengthen this vital trade relationship?
Party Light would like to build upon our already strong trade relationship with the European Union. We are going to enact a free trade agreement with the EU that will reduce a significant number of tariff barriers and up to 50% of non-tariff barriers, such as discrepancies in regulations between the United States and various EU member states. We believe that this is a no-brainer. It's beneficial to both the United States and European economies as we continue to recover from the recession that we want to move on from. In addition, the one tariff that will be maintained is on European auto imports because we believe that it's important to sustain the American auto industry in the recovery from the federally sponsored bailout of 2009 and believe this is a vital American industry that should be maintained. Thank you.
Elysium, you have 1 minute to rebut the response.
Yes, it is important to maintain strong trade relations and diplomatic relations with the European Union. However, it is time to move away from a policy that emphasizes only our relations with other Western nations. Decreasing trade tariffs with the European Union would be beneficial in relations between the U.S. and the European Union. However, it has the potential to alienate other nations with which the United States desperately needs to improve its relations. As such, Elysium proposes more free trade initiatives with other countries of the world, particularly in Latin America and in Southeast Asia. We believe that it is important to build upon a global economy, not simply an economy that depends on relations between the U.S. and the European Union or the U.S. and China. It is imperative that we improve relations, both economically and diplomatically, with all nations of the world, and this is most feasible through free trade initiatives with many nations that are already building strong relations with the United States.
Party time, you have the next question. Party light will have the opportunity to rebut the response. The question is, since the creation of Israel in 1948, violence has persisted over the rights of Jews, Arabs, and Palestinians. Due to the security concerns of both Israel and the new state of Palestine, situated in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, how does your party plan to address the safety of 500,000 Israelis living in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and the tens of thousands of Palestinians living within Israel's portion of the 1967 Green Line borders?
Here at Party Time, we recognize that the issue of the Israel-Palestine borders is extremely prevalent today. However, we also realize that real people are being affected by these issues and are being forced into countries that they are not citizens of by the creation of these borders. Therefore, Party Time would like to support negotiations between the two countries regarding displaced peoples. We also realize that we cannot do this without the cooperation of both Israel and Palestine. Both parties need to be willing to come to negotiations and willing to negotiate the lives of these displaced people. Here at Party Time, we believe that the best solution that we can support for Israel-Palestine is one where both nations come together and create a solution, a two-state solution together, instead of having one forced upon them by the international community. Thank you.
Party line, you have 1 minute to respond.
Party Time talks about the 1967 borders. Now, within the 1967 borders, there are 500,000 Israelis living in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, and tens of thousands of Palestinians living within Israel territory. By supporting the 1967 borders, you're marginalizing over 500,000 Israelis and tens of thousands of Palestinians. Now, with Party Light's policy of creating a land swap between the two sides, loosely based on the Makovsky map, we can include over 400,000 of those 500,000 Israelis and tens of thousands of those Palestinians. Now, using the 1967 borders, which were established about 50 years ago, is antiquated. It's not going to work. It's not going to bring peace. By demilitarizing the new Palestinian state, Israeli security concerns will be addressed. And then by the U.S. providing economic aid to both sides, these two will be able to cooperate and peace will be allowed to foster between these two states. Thank you.
The next question is for Illuminati. Party time, you will have an opportunity to rebut the response. Illuminati, the question is, while the U.S. and China have not always been on friendly terms, China is a strategic ally for the U.S. to have. Despite this, tensions still exist between our two nations. How does your party intend to alleviate U.S. relations with China?
So as I said a few minutes ago, a large part of our relations with China have been trade, and it is crucial for us, both economically and diplomatically, to maintain and extend our trade with China. To do so, we're going to make sure that it continues on the same path that it has been for years, growing and growing with investment between the countries. One issue has been the humanitarian issues in the country, and again, like I said before, those will alleviate over time. And if they do not, we will start talks then, and we will continue talking with China over issues such as North Korea and other problems we're having with them around the world. And through that will come sort of an ironic friendship. As we solve issues around the world, as we come to terms with our problems, as we compromise, we will become more friendly. And our economic ties will help us through those times.
Party time, you have 1 minute.
Illuminati claims that China has been a large part of our economy, which Party Times agree with. However, Illuminati fails to even address China in their policy, and the only mention of policy they have is over land disputes in Asia. So Illuminati isn't even recognizing weaponizing our vital trade importance with China by neglecting to mention China in their platform. Now, Party Time understands that there's a difference in ideologies between the two countries. However, over time, Chinese policies have begun to shift. With the recent Chinese government abolishing the one-child per family policy with a few regulations, and also with the removal of the re-education camps established by Mao Zedong during the Cultural Revolution of 1960. At Party Time, we will continue to have diplomatic relations with China, and we understand that our trade agreements with China and our trade between China and the United States is vital for our economy.
The next question is for Party of the Ages, Illuminati. You'll have an opportunity to rebut their response. The question for Party of the Ages is, the Russian Federation and the United States had a historically tense relationship since the years building up to the Cold War. With the implementation of the START program, hopes to relieve these tensions have risen, though the Russian Federation has been infamous in backing out of agreements in the past. How do you plan to ensure that Russia maintain the terms of START?
Here at Party of the Ages, we recognize that Russia signing the START Treaty was a monumental improvement. Thus, we will continue to improve our relations so that they do not back out of it. How are we going to do that? We are not going to pressure them in domestic issues, because by doing so, that might jeopardize our future cooperation with the nation. And we do not want to do that, especially with a country that has warheads. Here, we will pursue a more strategic approach, strategic patience. We will wait for the opportune times to negotiate with the nation, rather than pressuring them and forcing them to do what we want them to do. That is not the policy we're pursuing. That is interventionism, and that is detrimental for the future opportunities that we may encounter with Russia. Again, I don't know what the other parties are going to do. What is there to do? Thank you.
Illuminati, you have a minute.
We realize that the relationship between the Russian Federation and the United States has not been exactly good. Now, this being said, we want to also negotiate the START program. By doing so, we will plan to increase our relationships with Russia in terms of our domestic policy. We are adding a whole bunch of funding to groups such as NASA, and you will see a big resurgence into group technology. In return of this technology, we will in turn work with Russia, especially on our space programs, to further our own relationships. Especially with the Sochi Games coming up, we will also provide security and work closely with Russia to maintain our relationship. We want to foster that relationship so that we can in turn maintain our treaties on a mutual term and a respectful term. Thank you.
The final question for this section is for Elysium. Party of the Ages, you'll have an opportunity to rebut the response. Elysium, your question is, global corporations have a reputation for importing labor as a cheaper price than domestic labor, causing severe American job loss. By utilizing subpar working conditions and regulations in other countries, these global corporations employ foreign workers in order to cut costs. How does your party plan to account for the loss of domestic employment by these large corporations?
As Elysium has previously stated, we are taking a fair trade approach to our global economic relations with other nations. This includes expanding free trade opportunities that already exist in Latin America, as well as expanding trade that we have with the world's fastest growing economies, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. We believe in the inherent immorality of many nations' work conditions, such as China's, and as such, we will be gradually reducing trade with these nations in favor of more free trade agreements. Additionally, Elysium is planning on reducing outsourcing and bringing jobs back into the United States. As part of our unemployment policy, we will expand education and vocational opportunities for American students to grow job opportunities in the United States and incentivize corporations to hire domestically rather than outsourcing their production. Doing so will allow us to ensure that Elysium will be able to maintain strong economic ties with other nations while also growing our own domestic economy. Moreover, through the free trade agreements that I already spoke about.
That's time. Party of the Ages, you have a minute.
Here at Party of the Ages, we are also dramatically increasing funding to educational programs so that foreign companies are incentivized to hire American workers and invest in the American economy. However, we're also doing more than Party Elysium. We are lowering the corporate tax rate to 27%, and we are keeping a lower capital gains rate to ensure that even though we do have a higher income tax for the very, very rich, because of that higher income tax, they will be incentivized to artificially lower their income by reinvesting in their businesses. This will help spur American infrastructure and ingenuity. In addition, our Social Security program is going to strengthen the United States stock market, which is going to make America a more profitable investment for foreign corporations. All of our economic policy is focused on bringing jobs back to America and revitalizing the American economy. That goes for our domestic as well as our foreign policy. We are going to bring jobs back to America.
We're moving back to the inter-party questions. I will have to say this is my favorite part of it. So we're going to begin with party time. Party time, you will be allowed to present your question to a different party. They'll have a minute and 30 seconds to respond, and then you'll have a minute to rebut their response. Party time, you may begin.
This question is for Party of the Ages. In your platform, you state that you have a policy of non-interventionism, yet you would also like to begin deporting incarcerated, undocumented aliens in order to decrease the amount of federal government spending on these detainees. You also discuss accepting 70,000 people at random every 6 months and granting them citizenship within the United States. How does your party justify these actions, and how would you deal with the economic and social impacts of legislation such as the DREAM Act if it were to be passed within the United States?
You have a minute and 30 seconds to respond.
Here at Party of the Ages, first and foremost, we are in complete support of the DREAM Act. We believe that those immigrants who are accepted to a college or graduate from a high school in the United States are the people that we want to keep in this country. As to your illegal immigration reference, we are completely revamping the illegal immigration system by letting 70,000 immigrants in from Mexico and Canada every 6 months. This way, the process to immigrate to this country will not take 6 to 7 years as it currently does today, and this way illegal immigration will not be as large of a problem as it has been in the past.
Party time, you have 1 minute.
Since you are a Party of the Ages, we believe that your policy on immigration is a little aged for the country that is. Which Party of the Ages, I would like to point out, does not specifically mention in their platform. At Party Time, we would like to implement the passage of the DREAM Act to give immigrant youth in the United States the opportunity for an education and also creating a more economically prosperous future for America. At Party Time, we also believe in passing more H-1B visas, doubling the amount of visas that we hand out every year throughout the United States. We believe by making the process easier to pass from legal residency to legal citizenship within the United States, we will be able to allow more people within this country in a faster and more efficient process, and also be able to create a more educated community throughout the United States. Thank you.
Illuminati, select your party, ask your question.
This question is for party time. The Pacific region is rife with territorial disputes. China claims the entirety of the South China Sea as their sovereign nation. Despite the area being claimed by Vietnam, the Philippines, Taiwan, and other countries, a direct violation of the UN Convention on the Laws of the Seas. With 5.3 trillion in trade passing through the South China Sea annually, this could have a disastrous effect on the global economy. In addition, China also claims the Senkaku Diaoyu Islands as part of their territory, despite the area also being claimed by Japan. How does your party plan to solve these disputes?
You have a minute and a half.
Here at Party Time, we are moving away from the image of the policeman of the world. There are disputes in the South Sea over territorial disputes, and we will resort to the United Nations to deal with these controversies and the land claims. However, at Party Time, we do not believe in intervening between two countries if they can mediate between themselves. In addition, China has failed to recognize Taiwan as even a separate country and refuses to trade with many countries who do recognize Taiwan as a different country with a different government. As a result, our Party Time, our policy with China is to increase our trade while maintaining our diplomatic relationships with them and making sure that our relationships with China do not suffer because of other disputes. Thank you.
Illuminati, you have 1 minute.
Here at the Illuminati, the trade in China, as well as the island disputes, has caused $5.3 trillion in trade. Now, obviously, the United States economy is affected. Now, Party Time is not taking a stance. They are removing themselves from these island disputes. What does that mean? That means that the United States will, in turn, have an economic detriment if something happens in these disputes. I thought that Party Time was all about preserving the China trade. Now, at the Illuminati, we want to take a stance on this. We believe that, especially with $900 trillion cubic feet of oil in the region, we believe that this region is extremely important to our party. Therefore, we will instead act as mediator between these islands and promote an agreement between the countries, multilateral discussions, so that these countries can coexist with each other while not affecting the annual trade of all the countries around us. Thank you.
Party of the Ages. Select your party, ask your question.
This question's for Party Light. You claim to be in full support of the Iraqi government in promoting stability, yet you are willing to base the supply of arms given to the country on fair and democratic national elections in April. What if in the democratic elections, extremist leaders that sympathize with groups such as Al-Qaeda and Hamas are elected? Why do you think that shortening the amount of weapons supplied in Iraq in a time of sectarian violence and Al-Qaeda's growing power will do anything but further destabilize the region and erase everything we have fought for over the last decade?
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond.
Party Light would like to clarify that what we have fought for in Iraq for the last decade is a fair and democratic government. If the current government in Iraq is not guaranteeing fair and democratic elections in April to its people, the majority of whom are not terrorists, but are people that want peace in the region, there will be no sustainable government in Iraq, and the United States' effort will have gone to waste. It is imperative that the government that the United States supports in Iraq will promote democracy and will stop taking action against the country's Sunni Muslim minority for there to be stability in the region in the future and for the United States to not have to continue to intervene. We want to create something in Iraq that is sustainable, and part of being sustainable is for something to be stable and to treat all of the people within the country equally. We believe that it's totally unacceptable that the Iraqi government has been attacking the minority within their country, and to continue the United States' support of weapons to the Iraqi government, which are being used against their own people, we need this to stop, and we will depend on fair and democratic elections as determined by the United Nations and non-governmental organizations in April. Thank you.
Party of the Ages, you have 1 minute to rebut response.
Here at Party of the Ages, we believe that the most undemocratic thing that you can do is cut, right now, the supply of arms to a nation that needs them, based on elections that might not be fair, even though that is your intention. Just because it's your intention, it does not mean it's going to be a reality. Right now, it is the time we need to support our allies and not decrease their funding and their military arms. We need to help them become self-sufficient without weakening and destabilizing the region further, like your party aims to do. Here, again, we will continue a policy of non-interventionism, but that does not mean that we will abandon our allies in the Middle East. We will set in place things like military technology, military advisors, and financial aid to further promote stability, not promote instability. Thank you.
Elysium, it's your opportunity to select your party and to ask your question.
This question is for Illuminati. The Israeli-Palestine conflict has exemplified what is the best and worst in terms of the United States' relation with Israel. Human atrocities along the Gaza Strip have demonstrated the need for solution immediately. Given this situation, how can Illuminati justify continuing a policy that will only further tensions in this conflict?
You have a minute and 30 seconds to respond.
The Illuminati realize that many parties here want to support a two-state solution. At the Illuminati, we do not support the two-state solution. Why? There are two reasons why we do not support this two-state solution. First being that Israel has been our ally for the past, our strongest ally for the past 30 years, and will remain that way in the next generation of relationships. Now, the second, maybe more important one, is that the Palestinian Leadership Organization, PLO, Mahmoud Abbas, has told the United Nations that they want to create a secular democratic state. However, what Mahmoud Abbas has told his people is quite different. They want to create a state where one religion is promoted, the Islamic religion, and under the legislation of the Sharia law. What does that mean? This means that the Palestinian state that would be created would discriminate against many groups. This includes not allowing Jews into the new state. This allows discrimination of homosexuals. Do we want to create more religious tension in the region? At the Illuminati, we do not believe in a short-term solution. We look to the long-term aspects of our problems. Thank you.
Elysium, you have 1 minute to rebut the response.
Illuminati may recognize that Israel has been a strong and consistent ally of the United States, but what it fails to recognize is the fact that Israel has committed countless human rights violations against the Palestinian people. Israel has consistently denied the Palestinian people their right to self-determination, as well as withholding critical resources from the Palestinian people, making it extremely difficult for the Palestinian people even to survive. At Elysium, we are strongly committed to the ideal of human rights for everyone, and as such, we are advocating a two-state solution that will bring about a long-term and stable peace in the region. We plan to achieve this through facilitating multilateral peace talks in the region to allow all sides of the conflict to reach a peaceful solution that all sides of the conflict will be satisfied with. We are not advocating any radical government in Palestine. However, we recognize the need to recognize Palestine as its own sovereign state and to cease the discrimination that has been committed against the Palestinian people by Israel.
Party light, you will be allowed to now conclude our section of inter-party questions. Select your party and ask your question.
For Elysium, you claim to be about human rights, yet you agree with the 1967 borders in the Israel-Palestine conflict. It's true that Illuminati is a little too pro-Israel, but you guys are a little too pro-Palestine. By forcing Israelis to completely have transparency in the money that they use for a lot of security concerns, Israel will not be able to maintain these security concerns if you force them to itemize exactly how they use all the aid that the U.S. gives to them. By supporting the 1967 borders and complete transparency, how do you expect Israel to protect itself against security concerns?
You have a minute and 30 seconds.
Illuminati may be too pro-Israel, but so is Party Light. At Elysium, we recognize the fact that the United States provides over $3 billion in financial aid to Israel each year, accounting for over 20% of the United States' entire allocated foreign budget. As such, we believe that it is necessary for Israel to account for each way that it spends that aid. The United States forces all other nations that it provides economic aid to account for the way in which it spends its aid. So why not Israel as well? Moreover, although we recognize the security concerns surrounding the 1967 Green Line borders, we advocate a two-state solution in which Israelis and Palestinians will have dual citizenship to both Israel and Palestine to facilitate an easy and safe movement of people between the two nations, as well as increased border security that will allow the nations to have strong and safe borders, but also not prevent the movement of people between their two nations. At Elysium, we recognize that it is time to stop supporting such a pro-Israel approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And as such, we advocate a peaceful two-state solution that will ensure a long-lasting and humanitarian peace in the future.
Party Light, you have 1 minute.
So your plan is to decrease aid to the only stable democracy in the Middle East. I don't see how that's going to promote anything between these two people. If you have dual citizenship, then how are you going to prevent people from moving across the borders? You want to secure borders but allow dual citizenship? I don't see how that works. Israel has a much greater security concern than a lot of the other foreign nations that we have. You want Palestine to be a sovereign nation, and we do too. We're promoting peace. We have a plan outlined. We just want to promote talks. Talks have been going on for 30 years. Nothing's happened so far. We have a plan. We're utilizing land swaps that both sides have agreed to. The PLO agreed to a less than 5% land swap, and the Makovsky map that we proposed is only a 3.7% land swap, but includes over 400,000 of the 500,000 Israelis in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, as well as tens of thousands of Palestinians now living in Israeli territory. You don't address those concerns in all of your policy. You stick to the 1967 Green Line or encourage just talks, which have not worked.
We will conclude our foreign policy debate with closing statements. Each party will have 1 minute to provide its closing statement. We will begin with Illuminati.
We are the Illuminati. Anoam Atatam Venerit. A new era has come.
That was succinct. Okay. Party of the Ages.
Here at Party of the Ages, we are anything but aged, and we think it is time for other parties to come up with their own jokes. We are here for the American people. We are here to promote peace and prosperity as we are fiscally conservative and socially progressive, okay? We will wait for the opportune time to deal with nations and not force them to do the things that they do not want to do that will be detrimental. And here, with the ideals of perseverance and honest hard work, we will build a lighter and brighter future. Tomorrow, when you cast your vote, think ages. The party that applies the wisdom of the ages to today. Thank you.
Party time, your closing statement.
Here at Party Time, we believe in our foreign policy and its ability to make the world a better place for this generation and generations to come. Regarding our military policy, we will not be putting more boots on the ground. All our policies are moving towards a world where we do not need to have any troops in combat unless absolutely necessary. We will be working towards a peaceful future through all our policies, including but not limited to counter-terrorism, the United Nations, the environment, and relations with all foreign entities. We need to work hard to foster diplomacy with all nations. It's time to celebrate our successes
It's party time.
Party Light, you have 1 minute for your closing statements.
Party Light's foreign policy is unique. With regards to Iraq, we are the only party with a plan to address the sectarian violence that has been perpetuated by the Iraqi government against its Sunni Muslim minority. We will stop selling weapons to the Iraqi government if there are not free elections in April. In regards to drones, we are going to continue using drones as it is the smart way to continue winning the war against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. These counter-terrorism efforts will improve our relationships with every country in the world as we continue to weaken those that want to harm the United States. On Israel-Palestine, we have the only policy that could possibly work, that is not just talks. We are instituting land swaps that will put Israelis in Israel and Palestinians in Palestine for a sustainable two-state solution that ties the two states through trade. We will create sustainable peace in the Middle East. Thank you.
To conclude closing statements, Elysium.
Elysium's foreign policy acknowledges that it might be your country and it might be my country, but this is our world. We don't just throw money at our problems, China. We believe in cooperation and bringing the human aspects back into the economy as well as diplomacy and social aspects. We respect the nation's sovereignty to do with its people as it wishes, but we will still say our opinion and provide humanitarian aid when that country isn't doing its job. Elysium aims to improve not only what goes on in our country, but how we relate as a global community and how responsible we are for every person in this world. Thank you.
Everybody has had the opportunity to hear the range of isolationist thinking, interventionist thinking, a few sore spots that have come up, a balance of width and depth. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over and we will conclude this section.
Okay, we're done with the foreign policy round of the debate. As usual, we're running a little behind schedule, so we're going to take about a 2-minute break. Ushers, help us out. Crowd, you can stretch your legs, but don't stray too far from your seats. 2-minute break. Okay, we are about to begin the domestic policy round of the debate. Please welcome back to the podium TUSD Superintendent H.T. Sánchez.
The focus will now be on domestic policy. We'll begin with opening statements on domestic policy with Party of the Ages.
First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Karlowitz and the entire UHS staff for allowing us this amazing opportunity. This project is, and I know it sounds like a joke, but it's the single most enriching, intellectual, and awe-inspiring school-sponsored round of the world. So really, thank you guys for allowing this. However, talking about Party of the Ages a little bit, we're different. Whether you personally agree with our policies, we took to heart the ideals of being fiscally conservative and socially liberal. When able, we took the chance and stood and stand by our more radical policies, but we didn't make them so radical as to be not pragmatic and only idealistic. I know I speak for the rest of my party in saying thank you guys for your attention, and hopefully we can make this debate interesting. Thank you.
Elysium, your opportunity.
Paraphrase from a streetcar named Desire. This is a nation whose appeal, as a place to visit and to live, has always had to do more with an extensive, tightly woven fabric of residential neighborhoods than with icons. Elysium's domestic policy puts the power to excel as individuals and as a nation in the hands of you, the citizens, not in the hands of corporate icons. Elysium strives to create policies that offer opportunities for education, for employment, for a clean environment, and for equality.
Party line, it's your opportunity to provide your domestic policy opening statement.
So when we were first presented with this, we had to come up with a mission statement for our domestic policy. And the one we chose was, rather than simply patch together current old broken ways of doing things, we will come up with completely new solutions to the problems that have ailed this nation for years. I believe Party Light does this through our drug policy, in which we treat drug addicts for the disease that they have rather than making them enemies of the state, and we eliminate drug trafficking and violence in Mexico. I believe we do this through our 28th Amendment, in which we end corporate personhood because your income should not determine your voice in the political sphere. I believe we do this through our environmental policy, in which we ride a train out of foreign oil dependency, and we incentivize both states and corporations to recycle more and do more with their hazardous waste. I believe, rather than putting up with the issues of today, we are leading the country into a brighter future and solving the problems of tomorrow.
Party time, your domestic policy opening statements, please.
At party time, we see an America that has accomplished so much, yet that has become complacent, content, with a policy that no longer meets the needs of a global nation. In America, we rely heavily on foreign oil and non-renewable energy resources in order to fuel our nation. We have created a nation with thousands of unemployed, uninsured, and uninspired U.S. citizens. However, we also see a time to explore and to innovate, a time to rebuild, reinvent, and rebalance American society. That time is now. At party time, we are invested in economically feasible and innovative domestic policies in order to make our great nation more equal, more sustainable, and more willing to invest in its citizens. Thank you.
To conclude domestic policy opening statements, Illuminati.
Under the Illuminati, the nation will see a new era of prosperity. By creating jobs, guaranteeing the possibility of health care for all Americans, ending rights violations across the country, and making sure that American elections are determined by the voice of the people and not how large the checkbook of a corporation is. Under the Illuminati, America will see a new era of prosperity, an era in which we will see success and happiness from coast to coast. A new era has come. We're the Illuminati. Thank you.
We will now begin our random topic prepared question segment. We'll begin with Elysium. Party time, you'll have the opportunity to provide a rebuttal to Elysium's answer to this first question. Each year, the number of school shootings and mass shootings has risen. Public figures such as Gabrielle Gifford and her husband, Mark Kelly, have suggested that the new gun legislation be passed to prevent these shootings, yet many organizations such as the NRA continue to fight against this new legislation, citing a violation of the Second Amendment. How is your party reforming gun policies to support both sides of the issue?
To paraphrase the preamble of the Constitution, we the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, establish domestic tranquility. With Elysium's Life Act, we will ensure domestic tranquility through our gun control. The Life Act provides more significant background checks, eliminating people who have mental health disorders, restraining orders, and criminal records from purchasing weapons. In addition to this, we will also issue the 2013 assault weapons ban, which closes the loopholes associated with the 1994 assault weapons ban. In addition to this, the Life Act will raise taxes on ammunition from 11% to 25%, and on firearms from 10% to 35%. Elysium's Life Act will promote and ensure domestic tranquility within our schools and within our streets. Thank you.
Party time, you have 1 minute.
responsibility is so large that it should be regulated by the government with certain restrictions and regulations. We will be reinstating the 1994 assault weapons ban, but we will also be creating certain federal background check systems that will be stricter and stronger. We will also require that every single person who purchases a gun has a federal license to do so. By passing this legislation and creating these reforms, we believe at Party Time we will be able to close gun show loopholes and any other loopholes that a person may have in order to maintain or purchase a weapon. We believe at Party Time that every single person who purchases a weapon must have training and must be able to use that weapon responsibly. 268 Americans are shot every single day within the United States, and we believe that it is an issue for Party Time to take into our own hands and create reforms that make a safer nation.
The next question is for Party Light. Illuminati, you will have the opportunity to provide a rebuttal to their response. Party Light, your question is, different opinions on the morality and economic efficiency of capital punishment, as well as different methods, have made it a controversial topic in politics. What is your party's plan on capital punishment, and what are the economic impacts of your plan?
Party Light realizes that capital punishment is an economically inefficient system, morally wrong system, and racially biased system. It actually costs more to keep someone in prison for life than it costs more to put someone on death row and execute them than it does to keep them in prison for life. It also affects African Americans more than Anglo Americans. 65% of homicide victims in Alabama are African American, but 80% of people on death row are on death row for killing a white person. Similarly, an independent survey of a certain death row showed that 1/3 of the African Americans there wouldn't be there if they were white. We can't support a system that punishes you more and makes you more likely to be put to death if you're a different race. That's why we're abolishing capital punishment, because it's morally wrong, it doesn't make sense economically, and because it punishes one race more than other races. Thank you.
Illuminati, you have 1 minute.
A party like makes a reasonable argument. They fail to mention the constitutionality behind that. The capital punishment system in place right now currently violates the 8th Amendment to the Constitution, which states that cruel and unusual punishment is outlawed. So what we are planning to do is we are going to be focusing on the economic impacts, but as well as the constitutionality of it. Because keeping a prisoner in prison rather than executing them immediately does cost less. Because the execution, as well as the right to 2 appeals, which is also another constitutional fact Party Light left out, is more expensive than just keeping them in prison for life. The average prisoner is in prison for 50 years. So essentially, we're currently giving them a life sentence and then adding on to that the economic insufficiencies of executing them and giving them the 2 appeals. So what our plan is to provide the prison for life system, which again is morally correct because it does not allow for the execution of innocent people, while also providing a huge financial success for the United States. Thank you.
A very good, agreeable rebuttal. Okay, the next one is a question for Party Time. Party of the Ages, you have the opportunity to provide the rebuttal. Party Time. Your question is, in 2010, the Supreme Court ruled that just like individuals, corporations are protected as individuals under the First Amendment. Does your party believe this is accurate? If not, how do you define a corporation and how it differs from an individual?
In 2010, under the Citizens United, the Supreme Court ruled that corporations should be treated just as individuals. This allowed corporations to donate limitless amount of funds to political campaigns, and sometimes the donors weren't even listed, which allowed elections to be swayed dramatically. Party Time believes that corporates should not have the ability to donate money, donate limitless amount of money. However, we also believe that corporations should still have basic First Amendment rights, such as the right to property. Party Life believes that corporate personhood should be reinterpreted by the Supreme Court, as it was the Supreme Court who gave that decision that allowed corporates to have that power. So we will, Party Life will encourage the Supreme Court to grant certiorari to cases that will reinterpret the 2010 decision and hopefully limit the corporate personhood and the power that corporations have.
Party of the Ages, who rebuttal?
This time, we actually do agree with Party Time's policy somewhat. We realize that the issue of corporate personhood is a pressing issue, and that applying a blanket approach is a bad idea. Corporations are not always individuals, nor should they be considered always as individuals, but they are also, applying a blanket approach is a bad idea. So corporations would be individuals in cases involving civil suits, because we believe that an individual should be allowed to sue a corporation if their rights are being violated. Corporations would also have certain First Amendment rights, such as privacy, the right to free speech. However, this right to free speech with corporations, with Party of the Ages, would not include the right to donate unlimited amounts of money. Here at Party of the Ages, we have seen the history of America progress, and we understand the value of democracy. And we will not allow democracy to be jeopardized by corporations buying the public's vote with unlimited campaign donations. We will put an end to that.
The next question is for Illuminati. Elysium, you'll have the opportunity to provide a rebuttal. Illuminati, your question is, the passage and implementation of the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare, is highly controversial. Many believe the act is socialist, while others believe the act isn't doing enough to help Americans who can't afford health care. What is your party's stance on Obamacare?
Here at the Illuminati, we believe that the Affordable Care Act was a step in the right direction for America. We believe that the biggest problem with the act is that it did not do what it promises. It promises to provide affordable health care for people of all income levels, and it did not do that. Many people in lower and the middle classes have seen that their insurance rates have risen, and those who did not previously have insurance now are forced to pay insurance that they cannot pay for. At the Illuminati, our plan to fix these problems is to increase subsidies to these individuals who are seeking health care so that it will be affordable to them, and so they can go to hospitals and receive treatment if necessary with no burden placed upon them, so their economic standing is not crushed by large health bills.
Elysium, you have 1 minute.
At Elysium, we believe that everyone is entitled to the basic human right of access to health care. Obamacare, which is a policy being continued by Party Time, simply fails to achieve this goal. Not only will Obamacare cost the federal government over $150 billion per year, but it leaves a large coverage gap for individuals in states that have not expanded Medicaid coverage. As such, Elysium recognizes that Obamacare is neither an economically nor morally viable option for healthcare in the United States. As an alternative, Elysium proposes our policy of fair care, a system in which the federal government will subsidize the cost of private health insurance for all individuals falling below median income. Unlike Obamacare and unlike universal health care, fair care will maintain the benefits of having a private health industry, such as increased quality of care, without financially overburdening the nation as Obamacare and as universal health care tend to do.
The final question of this section is for Party of the Ages. Party Light, you'll have the opportunity to rebut the response. Party of the Ages, your question is, in January 2013, President Obama presented his comprehensive plan to prevent gun violence in the United States. His plan includes improving the background check system, banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines of ammunition, creating and enforcing stricter trafficking laws, and increasing our study and knowledge of the gun violence epidemic. How does your party plan to deal with the ever-present issue of gun control and effectively control possessions and usage of these weapons?
Here at Party of the Ages, we are completely revamping the gun policy of this nation. First and foremost, we are creating a national registration database, which means that whether you buy a gun privately or publicly, you must go through this database. Along with this database, we will require stricter mental health checks and background checks to make sure that guns are not falling into the hands of the wrong people. Along with our national registration, we'll be implementing national concealment and carry laws. This way, those who carry guns and have to cross interstate lines will not have to worry about differing laws from state to state. They'll simply be able to conceal or carry their weapon as they choose because it will be on a national basis. As to violence in the U.S., we will also be cutting down on the illegal weapons coming in through Mexico with our weapons database that we're creating within our immigration policy. So that way, less illegal guns are coming and there will not be as much gun violence in the U.S.
Party light, you have 1 minute.
It is obvious to us that we need background checks, we need mental health evaluations, and we need a nationalized database for gun records. However, the question asked, how are we effectively controlling guns in the nation as it is right now? Party Light is implementing a nationalized gun insurance policy in which private insurance agencies will cover people who own firearms or wish to own firearms. What this will do is it will almost eliminate illegal trade from now on because those who purchase guns and wish to sell them privately in the black market will have no financial incentive to do so. Party of the Ages is implementing a 50% tax on guns, encouraging illegal trade because why would you buy a gun legally for more higher price if you can buy it illegally for a lower price? Under our policy, if somebody buys a gun legally and then they sell it for $1,000, if they're paying $100 a month of insurance premiums, in 10 months it will no longer be profitable. I believe that we are the only party that effectively addresses the gun issue and effectively addresses the black market of guns. Thank you.
Our next section will entail inter-party questions. The first party to be able to ask a question of another party is Party Light. Ask your question, please.
This is a question for Elysium. As it is now, healthcare is incredibly inefficient. Hospitals mark the prices of procedures and materials up to 400% of their actual cost, knowing that insurance companies will negotiate the price down. This results in many Americans paying more than they should, and hospitals can make huge profits off the misfortune of our population. How will maintaining your healthcare plan combat the inefficiency, the greed, and the cost of healthcare when you're only addressing the cost of the insurance premiums that people do pay?
If Party Light had actually read our platform, they would understand the fact that we do address the issue of high healthcare costs in America. We first plan to address this issue by implementing auto adjudication of healthcare claims. Currently, manual filing of healthcare claims results in over 30% of healthcare costs being lost to inefficiency in the system. By mandating auto adjudication of claims instead, we will be able to reduce overall healthcare costs for all Americans by over 30%. Moreover, Elysium plans to implement full transparency in the healthcare industry so that insurance corporations and so that hospitals are not able to price discriminate against any individuals. By ensuring full price transparency, we will be able to maintain a price standard in the healthcare industry that will make sure that healthcare prices are not inflated as they are today. Moreover, our government catastrophic insurance plan covers the cost of insurance of healthcare coverage for all healthcare claims over $20,000 per year for any individual or household. This effectively eases the burden of risk from individuals because at Elysium we believe that no individual should be financially overburdened with a health emergency or a health catastrophe that they themselves have no control over. We believe that everyone is entitled to the right to access to affordable health care, and we believe that our health care policy is the most effective and cost-efficient way to ensure this.
Party Light, you have 1 minute to rebut the response.
The fact of the matter is that there is money wasted in the healthcare industry because hospitals act in their own self-interest. They inflate prices expecting them to be inflated down, and even when they bargain with insurance companies end up paying 30% more than the procedure actually costs 90% of the time. In addition to that, with Elysium's platform,
the people under 50%, or less than the people in the 50th percentile of their economic standing, the 50% above them will be paying for their costs. So they can choose whatever insurance policy they want, and those who make more money than them will have to pay for it, and we don't believe that's right. With our universal healthcare system, we are implementing an 8.7% sales tax on goods except for food to pay for it, and the average American will have $4,000 to $5,000 more disposable income because they won't be burdened down by healthcare costs. We believe that through universal healthcare, every American will have a right to healthcare, and it won't have to be affordable because it will be available to them, because every individual has the right to be healthy regardless of their income. Thank you.
Party time. It's your opportunity to select a different party and to ask a question.
This question is for party pages. According to your platform, gender equality and income inequality has stayed stagnant for the past 40 years. However, you say that you will continue this policy because the policy of the past still works today. How is this policy going to solve this major issue? An issue that last night President Obama in the State of the Union address deemed imperative to recognize in order for economic progress within the United States.
Party of the Ages, you have a minute and 30 seconds to respond.
Here at Party of the Ages, we also recognize the importance of gender equality. Even though we are all male politicians on this stage, we understand that gender equality is still an issue that needs to be addressed. Party of the Ages will continue to use Title IX aggressively to make sure that gender equality will exist within the workplace and make sure that women are receiving the same wages as everyone else and are also hired as often as other women. We understand that this is a big issue, and we are not ignoring the issue. We're not letting the issue stay stagnant. We're going to continue to aggressively use the legislation that exists to further gender equality.
Party time. You have 1 minute.
At party time, we believe by continuing the use of Title IX only as the only way to combat income equality will make sure that this problem stays stagnant. Women make up half the workforce in the United States and only earn 77 cents for every dollar that a man works. At party time, we will be implementing policies such as the Employment Non-Discrimination Act and the Family Medical Insurance Leave Act, which will give women the ways to better combat this problem. We will also be promoting unionization for women, not to create a stereotype, but to combat a stereotype, and provide resources to better combat this problem and create a system throughout the United States, a support system that gives women the resources to those problems. At party time, we believe that by implementing these reforms, we will not only be able to make women have a more equal pay within the society, but also members of the LGBTQIA community. Because when women are successful, America is successful. Thank you.
Illuminati, select your questions and select your party.
All right, this goes to Elysium. In your energy plans, you cite a future dependence on domestic rather than foreign fossil fuels and an attempt to clean up the environment with legislation only. You also cite fracking as a safe process, while it has been proven to be destructive to human lives and the environment. The process involved in attaining oil and natural gas are dangerous and costly, and their products are not sustainable. It seems that this is a short-sighted plan, ignoring all possibilities of alternative energy. Especially considering your discontinuance of funding for solar and biomass energies, how do you plan on moving forward to developing new forms of energy in the future, or do you plan on seeing the U.S. remain reliant on antiquated energy?
Elysium, you have 30 seconds to provide a response.
Illuminati has faulty evidence of the issue of fracking. The problems with fracking are currently that they pollute water sources for people in their residential areas. By implementing regulations from the EPA with the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act, as well as the underground injection program, we will be able to mitigate this problem entirely. And so, all supposed issues of fracking, such as water pollution, will no longer be an issue. Additionally, Elysium plans to continue to support the renewable resources such as wind and nuclear.
renewable resources to keep a clean environment.
Illuminati, you have 1 minute.
Party Elysium said that it is irresponsible to continue funding solar power because of how inefficient it is. But don't you think it's also irresponsible to promote the pollution of groundwater that many people use to drink? On top of that, fracking also causes earthquakes, as we can be seen in Texas, and does pollute drinking water, as we can see in Pennsylvania. So it seems very odd that a country would base its entire energy system off such an energy source that causes so many problems. Here at the Illuminati, we want to base our energy off of nuclear because nuclear is more than 100 times more efficient than natural gas and has none of the environmental concerns that natural gas and fracking comes with natural gas and fracking. A nuclear power plant will release less radiation into the surrounding environment than a coal power plant, and again, it is more than 700 times more efficient than coal and more than 100 times more efficient than natural gas. So what is more irresponsible? Natural gas or nuclear mixed in with renewable sources like wind, solar, and biomass? That's what the Illuminati is proposing, and that is the most efficient use of our energy.
Party of the Ages, select your party, select your question.
This question is for Party Elysium. Auto adjudication is the process of paying for or denying insurance claims without making a decision on each claim manually. Companies often rely on software to adjudicate those claims in order to cut costs. The auto adjudication process is not immune to fraud, and others have tampered with software to steal money and deny individuals equitable compensation. Given your party's self-proclaimed emphasis on moral policies, how can you justify allowing a computer program to make life-altering financial decisions for every individual's healthcare needs?
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond.
Elysium's policy of auto adjudication of claims serves the purpose of reducing inefficiency in the healthcare industry. This inefficiency that currently exists through manual adjudication of claims not only drives up healthcare costs for the entire industry and individuals, but also it does not effectively work as well as it should. Auto adjudication is already implemented in VA health affairs, and we have seen that it is one of the most efficient and effective ways to adjudicate healthcare claims. It already works, and we plan to extend that method to the entire healthcare industry as a whole. Moreover, through auto adjudication, we will be able to ensure that inefficiency in the healthcare industry is reduced by over 30%, cutting our total cost of healthcare from the $910 billion per year that the federal government currently spends on Medicare and Medicaid to under $600 billion, and even further cuts through our plan of fair care, which will divert funds from Medicare and Medicaid into our fair care program. Additionally, through other measures such as healthcare transparency and the GCIP, we will further reduce healthcare costs, because we believe that not only is healthcare a basic human right, but affordable and equitable access to healthcare is a human right as well. And pursuant to that cause, we will ensure that auto adjudication of claims is a moral and efficient way to adjudicate healthcare claims while also reducing overall cost of healthcare.
Party of the Ages, you have 1 minute.
Elysium Fair Care is anything but fair. If you make above average income, which you all will in this room when you grow up, you will be forced to pay into a system that will give you next to nothing in return. Furthermore, Party Elysium is grossly overestimating the amount of money they're going to save with auto adjudication. A 30% cut to cost is a ridiculously high estimate. And there's a moral issue as well. Do you, if you have mounting healthcare costs, want your claim processing to be done by a computer without any manual oversight? Because if there's manual oversight, then it's not auto adjudication anymore, and it will not be cheaper. Here at Party of the Ages, we have a universal healthcare system that actually works. It's a two-tier system. Everyone pays in, and everyone gets basic care. Everyone. That is a policy that's actually moral, actually fiscally responsible, and actually fair.
The final opportunity to ask a different party a question for this section belongs to Elysium. Select your party and ask your question.
This question is for Party of the Ages. Party of the Ages proposes a system of Social Security reform that they call the responsible retirement system, in which all individuals will have 7% of their income put into the stock market to generate profit that they will then be able to withdraw as Social Security. Party of the Ages proposes that a 12% growth rate in the stock market will produce $1.1 trillion in revenue for the government through the responsible retirement system. How can Party of the Ages justify implementing a system that will either destroy the stock market if this revenue is withdrawn for use, or run the government into a massive deficit if it is left in the market, with both outcomes leading to an economic depression in the United States?
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond.
The responsible retirement system, the RRS, that we are implementing is the only system that will prove and provide Social Security for everyone by the time we retire. To be perfectly honest, the other systems are going to collapse in 2033, and just simply raising the age is only going, it's similar to raising the debt ceiling, and we all know that is a bad decision. But about the mounting cost, because these mutual funds, the RRAs that we put the money into, normally gain 8 to 10% interest annually during a normal market. When we influx the market with $700 billion, the market has not only become more stable, but also the prices will stay stable, and also more foreign investors will invest. It's not crazy to think that when you put that much money in, the prices might go up. And also about the collapse, if the entire market collapsed for the risk, we have much bigger problems than Social Security. There is no Social Security for all of them. If you stick with a different party Social Security plan, you won't have Social Security. We're the only party that offers Social Security. Thank you.
Elysium, you have 1 minute to rebut their response.
Party of the Ages may pride itself on being fiscally conservative, but they are not fiscally responsible. What Party of the Ages fails to realize about basic accounting is that you cannot simultaneously have money in the stock market and being used by the government. Party of the Ages proposes that any excess revenue generated above a 7% return in the stock market will be withdrawn by the government and used for other government programs. However, how can Party of the Ages be able to have this money for use without withdrawing it from the stock market? And yet, withdrawing the money from the stock market would inevitably lead to a fiscal crash in the United States. Unlike Party of the Ages' so-called responsible retirement system, Elysium's three-pronged approach to Social Security reform, converting to the changed CPI, raising the retirement age by only 1 year, and lifting the payroll tax cap actually will be a responsible method for Social Security reform.
The next section will entail random topics, prepared questions. The first question is for party time. Elysium will be allowed to provide a 1 minute rebuttal. Party time. Your question is, agricultural subsidies are understood to be government subsidies paid to farmers in agribusiness in order to influence the supply and cost of agricultural goods, as well as to supplement the income of farmers. However, current U.S. agricultural subsidies harm developing nations and have strained relations at WTO talks. How does your party plan to address agricultural subsidies in the U.S.?
At Party Time, we are invested in responsible domestic policies. The U.S. has made promises at 2008 World Trade Organization talks to cut our agricultural subsidies in order to allow developing nations where agriculture is 50 to 80% of their economy to flourish and enter into feasible trade agreements with the United States. However, at this point, the United States has not acted on these promises. At Party Time, we will be responsible and we will reduce agricultural subsidies by $20 billion over the next 20 years. This will allow the laws of supply and demand to govern agricultural prices within the United States, which is the most socially responsible policy. Currently, agricultural subsidies only assist large agribusinesses like Cargill, and they help to make crops such as wheat and corn
does not help our American health. We believe that all people should have access to healthy and affordable food, and this policy will be implemented with their agricultural policy.
Elysium, your response.
Party Time seeks to over-account for a problem that has already been solved by the Agricultural Reform Act of 2013. This act both eliminates subsidies to businesses that make over $1 million, therefore taking your tax money from already successful giant agro-businesses and putting your money back where it needs to be. Additionally, the adverse market payment system will no longer be chained to fluctuating prices and instead the long-term crop prices, therefore mitigating the problem of people abusing the system of crop insurance. However, if Elysium finds that we are not abiding by the Doha rounds as prescribed by the World Trade Organization, we will instead re-implement the Freedom to Farm Act, which eliminates price supports entirely and instead replaces them with fixed payments. We will no longer have these agricultural problems because the Agricultural Reform Act is a sufficient and well-thought policy as it stands.
The next question is for Illuminati, Party Light. You'll have an opportunity to rebut the response to this question. Under the DREAM Act, concerns have arisen regarding the amount of funding needed, the number of students affected by the law, competitions between American citizens and permanent residents, and the financial strain placed on college campuses that will admit these students. How will your party address these concerns?
In the Illuminati, we're going to be decreasing deportation rates and the spending that is involved with that. What we're going to be doing is we're going to allowing for those who have been here since such a young age and have graduated high school conditional permanent residency in the United States. We want to advocate for those who want to come to the United States legally, while also sympathizing with those that have gained a bad reputation from other illegal immigrants that participate in illegal drug trade and other illicit activities. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be streamlining the application process, the citizenship process, while also heightening border security. Yet, we're also going to be funding programs so that we can give jobs to these newly permanent residents, while also providing jobs for our native citizens in America. Thank you.
Party Light, you have 1 minute.
Party Light agrees with the Illuminati on the DREAM Act. It gives people, children, a chance to become citizens and residents of the country they love. Many of these people who are legal immigrants might not even know they're legal immigrants. They've come from a country they no longer remember, a country where they don't know anyone, they might not even speak the language. So it's only right to allow them additional residence here if they've graduated high school, because those are the kind of people we want. They're going to be encouraging our industry, they're going to be creating more jobs. They're not going to be taking them. And to deal with the jobs that we might lose, our light rail or our train is going to transport goods all across the country. It's going to make the industry save money because everything's going to be cheaper. Every industry uses transportation, so everything will be cheaper. That means the economy will be spurred forward because we can spend more money and industry can spend more money. This is going to create jobs. And history has always shown us when we move forward like this, jobs get created, the economy moves forward, and instead of the immigrants taking our jobs, they're going to be creating more because they're going to be creating new businesses, because they'll educate people who want to be here and who love these countries. So we're going to protect these dreamers and not send them back.
The next question is for Party of the Ages. Party Time, you'll have an opportunity to rebut the response to this question. Current federal expenditures on healthcare programs such as Medicare and Medicaid amount for over $900 billion of total U.S. spending. Given the fragile economic state of the United States currently, how does your party plan to reform U.S. healthcare policy without financially overburdening the nation?
You have a minute. Yes. The two-tier care system of healthcare that we are implementing severely cuts costs of the healthcare market in a tremendous way. By implementing a flat tax of 8% on every individual, everyone in America gets a basic care provided by the federal government. This basic care provides low risk and low cost procedures like shots and x-rays, and so everyone has access to that. Also, then the second tier is through the private sector, and that is for anything that requires more additional cost. We're cutting Medicaid by 60% because we're taking all basic care out of Medicaid. So people within 130% of the federal poverty line will still collect Medicaid and can use that to buy second-tier care. This way, people who want more care have access to it, and people who don't have a low monthly premium. Thank you.
Party time, 1 minute. Your rebuttal.
At party time, we believe an 8% flat tax is not a socially responsible policy. Flat taxes become regressive taxes, charging people in the lower socioeconomic classes more for their health care. At party time, we believe that all American citizens work hard, and we believe that they should be guaranteed money in their retirement. Therefore, we will be continuing to invest in Social Security and Medicaid programs to allow our citizens to feel safe and secure within their lifetimes. We will have a Social Security system that is viable until at least 2118, not 2033, as Party of the Ages has pointed out previously. And we also believe that by raising the payroll tax from 12.4 to 15.5% and increasing the retirement age from 67 to 70 years of age in accordance with life expectancy rates within the United States, we will be creating a policy that is responsible. We think that health insurance is necessary for all citizens and that no person should be discriminated against because they are unable to afford it. Thank you very much.
Elysium, you have the next question. Illuminati, you'll be provided the opportunity to rebut their response to this question. Super PACs can run their own private campaigns for candidates, getting around caps on donations. Money is shown to be a huge indicator for success in elections. How does your party plan to solve the problem of super PACs?
5 of the top 10 contributors to super PACs are unions, and the other 5 are corporations. We will mitigate the problem of corporations providing so much money to super PACs by decreasing corporate personhood. Elysium advocates for corporate personhood to no longer exist by granting cert to cases so that corporate personhood will no longer be a problem and corporations will no longer be entitled to free speech and high amounts of money. Additionally, unions will decrease in power because as we bring jobs that are outsourced back to the United States, unions will be forced to become more competitive. Therefore, they will lose both political and economic power. By decreasing union power, they'll no longer be able to contribute to super PACs either. Therefore, individuals will remain able to have power in elections, while these large businesses that provide high sums of money will no longer have such a huge influence on your politics.
Illuminati, you have 1 minute.
It's kind of funny that Elysium proposes to stop super PACs from having such a large influence on elections through granting cert to Supreme Court cases when Party Elysium does not control the Supreme Court. Instead, what the Illuminati wants to do is pass federal legislation that will limit the power of super PACs, which are political action committees, allowing corporations to funnel unlimited amounts of money into political campaigns. Last year alone, all the candidates combined spent $1 billion. With the Illuminati, such exuberant spending will never happen again. We're limiting the number of super PACs allowed to be affiliated with a candidate to 4, and we're limiting the spending that each super PAC can have up to $5 million, meaning that a candidate will only be able to have $20 million in spending coming from a super PAC, guaranteeing that elections will be heard by the voice of the people and not the voice of the pocketbook of corporations.
The final question for this section will be for Party Light. Party of the Ages, you'll have the opportunity to provide a rebuttal to their response to this question. Party Light, the United States currently has the 3rd lowest taxation rates of all industrialized countries. What does your party plan to do with taxation rates And will you be able to maintain this level?
So actually right now our corporate income tax is one of the highest taxation rates, which is disincentivizing a lot of companies and keeping their profits overseas. About 285 of the Fortune 500 companies, which are the 500 most wealthiest US companies, are keeping over $1.5 trillion in money overseas. Now what we're going to do is we're lowering the corporate income tax to bring back that revenue, to bring back that $1.5 trillion back into the US economy, stimulating jobs. Now with other taxes, we're keeping them low. We're also closing the capital gains loophole, which allowed Facebook over $400 million in tax returns, which we see as unacceptable. So by bringing back the money from overseas while also incentivizing corporations to bring back their money into the country, we'll be able to raise over $200 billion simply on lowering our corporate income tax and encourage foreign investment in the US economy.
Party of the Ages, you have 1 minute.
Even though they are party light peers on this issue, they're still somewhat in the dark. We are lowering the corporate tax rate as well, but we are doing more. Our tax policy is called Tax Help because it's designed to help out you, the middle-class Americans, with your tax burden. So what we're doing for every individual making under $100,000 per year, we're cutting income taxes by about 5%. We're offering $750 billion in tax exemptions, many of which will go to help the poor, and we are lowering the corporate tax rate to 27% to encourage foreign investors to come back and reinvest in the American economy, as well as to incentivize American businesses to stay here. Our tax policy and our economic policy and our $204 billion budget surplus, everything we do here at Party of the Ages, because we are the fiscally responsible party, is designed to bring back business into the American economy and reinvigorate our nation. Thank you.
Our next section will focus on inter-party questions. We'll begin with Illuminati. Select your party, ask your question. The party will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond.
This goes to Party Light. After examining your platform and plans for massive spending, I'm curious to know how you plan to procure the revenue for such large projects. Since you released your budget after the deadline, I both question your fiscal responsibility and would be interested to hear firsthand how you plan to pay for your cash-draining projects, such as the light bill. Care to elaborate?
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Begin.
So, first of all, we have excise taxes on all things we deem to be unhealthy. We have excise taxes on drugs. We have excise taxes on fast food. And we have excise taxes on guns. And we're raising a lot of revenue through our 8.7% general sales tax on all items except for food. Because food affects the lowest income Americans, they spend a greater percentage of their income on that, so we're not taxing food. Now, 8.7% may seem like an exuberant amount to add on all things besides food, but the average expenditures, of Americans is about $50,000. 8.7% of $50,000 is a little bit over $4,000. By instituting a universal health care policy, we're saving the average American $8,000. So by providing every American with health care, which is fiscally responsible because we paid for it, and it's the most affordable because it's free, we allow every American to have a surplus of $4,000 disposable income while paying for all our things like the light rail. You may think that the light rail is going to cost $500 billion over the span of 30 years. We have accounted for if we had to pay for that all in 1 year. We have raised enough revenue to pay $500 billion for the light rail, which is going to stimulate American jobs all in 1 year. We're not going to obviously build it in 1 year, so it leaves us with massive amounts of money. We run over a $200 billion surplus in our budget, and we pay for every American to have health care. I don't see how that's irresponsible.
You have 1 minute to respond.
First of all, I commend you on your tax policy with Americans. I'm glad that we're saying that. Next, I would like to point out that your $500 billion estimate of the light rail seems a gross misunderestimation. Underestimation. I can't go over showing you guys, I'm sorry. Considering that a similar rail is being built in California to go 40 miles, costing $300 billion. So it seems interesting to me that a transcontinental rail line would only cost double that price. So interesting estimation there. Next, we are running with a similar tax policy. We also balance the budget. And without massive spending, we were only able to balance the budget. So I would be curious to know where else this spending is going. We as well instituted a 1% sales tax, added brackets to the top of our personal income and corporate income brackets, and bracketed our corporate, our capital gains tax, and are running a budget, balanced budget. I don't know how they did it. It's magic.
Party of the Ages, you're next. Your opportunity to select a different party to ask your question. Please
This
begin.
question is for Party Illuminati. While Party Light may have excessive spending, your party has the opposite. You are drastically cutting spending. In fact, your party plans to cut military spending by 50% in 1 year. How do you plan to deal with the mass unemployment your policy will create? And how do you expect the military to be able to adjust and continue American defensive capabilities and force projection capabilities with only half the budget they had last year?
Illuminati, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond.
Okay. First of all, we are just the Illuminati. It's not a party. Second of all, I would like to take a second to talk about our military cuts. We want to focus, unlike party time, instead of boots on the ground, on technology. Technology is the way this world is moving. And that's where we want to move our large budget cuts from military. So, you'll see a 50% cut in military over the coming years. However, that is being moved into education. That is being moved into technology. That is being moved into sustainable resources that will push this country forward and allow us to maintain the position that we have as a world power. No longer do we need boots on the ground. Large parts of those cuts are coming from a 35% cut to Army and Marines. Entirely boots on the ground. We are bringing soldiers home, we are giving them jobs, we are giving them educations, and we are allowing this country to move past the antiquated policies that we've had for so long regarding the military. Secondly, we're removing our military members from bases in Europe and Asia that are no longer required. We will keep those bases, however, we will remove the troops from them, bring them home, give them jobs in Border Patrol, give them jobs domestically. We will allow our country to move forward, and we will allow the world to move forward without burdening them with our military security.
Party of the Ages, you have 1 minute.
Here at Party of the Ages, we recognize that military spending is excessive. In our first year after we are elected, we're going to cut military spending by 10%, which is a reasonable amount. We're going to cut it by 5% every year after, up to a maximum of 40% over 7 years. Cutting military spending too drastically, because governmental spending, as all of you in economics know, makes up a large portion of our GDP. Cutting that by 50% in 1 year is fiscally irresponsible. And here at Party of the Ages, as we've said countless times, we are the fiscally responsible party. Matt just said that he's cutting the boots on the ground by about 35%, and he said that he was going to employ these people when they come home in Border Patrol. Why do we need 35% of our military in Border Patrol? Who exactly are we keeping out? And furthermore, in their platform, which is very, very brief if you've looked over it, they actually don't really have a plan to employ these personnel. A much more responsible plan to cut military spending is what you will get with Party of the Ages, and that is why you should vote Party of the Ages 2014.
Elysium, it's your opportunity to select a party and to ask a question.
Party Time proposes unionizing women as a solution to gender inequality in the workplace. However, not only are unions undemocratic by often forcing people to join them simply to obtain a job, but they also fail to act as a guarantee of equality. Given this, how can Party Time justify advocating the unionization of women?
Party time, you have a minute and 30 seconds.
At Party Time, we believe in promoting the unionization of women, not to create a stereotype and not to hinder the process of obtaining income equality, but we believe by providing unions for women, we'll be able to create a support system that not only combats income inequality, but also reduces pay secrecy within the workplace across the United States. I would like to ask Partylism what policies they have offered in order to combat income equality within the United States. We are cursed, I swear, with this ballot thing. Okay. At Party Time, we believe in the equality not just of women throughout the United States, but of members of the LGBTQIA community and all members within the United States, because we believe that these policies are necessary for us to address. We do not believe by promoting unionization for women that we will be creating a hindrance to society. We do not believe by promoting this policy that we are going to be eliminating or creating any job problems throughout these unions. We believe by providing a solution to this problem, we will be able to reduce the amount of income inequality throughout businesses throughout the United States, while also implementing the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which will make it so employees within every business within the United States will not be able to discriminate against gender in the hiring, firing, or workplace. Thank you.
You have 1 minute.
Unionizing women creates a critical distinction between men and women in the workplace, a distinction that itself is inherently unequal. Not only that, but unionizing women fails to absolutely guarantee workplace equality for women and all genders. As such, it is time now to implement a constitutional amendment to ensure workplace equality, just as we have ensured equality in the workplace for all races. As such, Elysium proposes a policy of passing the Equal Rights Amendment, which will make it unconstitutional for any organization or corporation to discriminate by gender or by sexual orientation. Unionizing women simply fails to go far enough in protecting the rights of women at a time when it is absolutely necessary to guarantee workplace equality. The only way to ensure that this is an absolute guarantee is through the Equal Rights Amendment, which is what Elysium will do to protect the rights of all groups in our society. Thank you.
Party line. Select your party, ask your question.
This question is for Illuminati. And how exactly do you plan to limit the number of super PACs a candidate can have when, by definition, they are independent of the candidate? And what exactly are you doing about corporate personhood other than talking about it?
Illuminati, you have a minute and 30 seconds to respond.
Despite it being illegal for a super PAC to directly coordinate with a candidate, it's fairly obvious that super PACs do coordinate with candidates. Even going as far as the head of a super PAC being on a candidate's staff, and that is not considered direct coordination, which I believe it still would be under, like, amendment to the Constitution. But so it's fairly obvious to us and to everyone which super PACs are affiliated to which candidate. When a super PAC endorses a commercial that endorses a candidate, that's fairly obvious what that super PAC stance is in the coming election. So it will be very easy to limit the amount of super PACs that are allowed to be affiliated with a candidate. And on your topic of corporate personhood, we're ending corporate personhood. We're taking away some of the rights that the Supreme Court has given them because corporations are not people. They're legal entities implemented to protect an owner of a company. They themselves are not that owner. So what we want to do with corporate personhood is we want to limit their freedom of speech because the Supreme Court has defined their freedom of speech. Does not mean that we're going overbearing and we're saying what corporations can and cannot say. Our regulations will be time, place, and manner restrictions to guarantee that these corporations do not overstep their bounds, that they do not go ahead and outvoice the voice of the American people, the most important voice in America. Thank you.
Party, you have 1 minute.
So just to help define what a super PAC is, if I were to spend $5 to make a poster for Barack Obama, all of a sudden, under Illuminati's plan, he only has 7 super PACs left. Their plan does not work. It is not obvious what a super PAC is, and that is why elections are bought and not voted on by the American people. In addition to that, you're still just talking about corporate personhood unless you choose to just ignore separation of powers and overturn Supreme Court precedent. The only way to do this is to amendize the Constitution, which we are doing through our 28th Amendment. And corporate personhood sounds like an abstract issue, but it really isn't. What it means is corporations can lie to us about the food that we eat and what the ingredients are in it. It means that they can require permission from inspectors before they go into their factory, which gives them an opportunity to hide health hazards. And it means they can spend unlimited amounts of money on initiative and referenda, which we believe is one of the most true forms of democracy. Party Light is the only party to effectively end corporate personhood and end the gridlock they have over the legislative process, because Congress should be acting in favor of the constituents, not where the money is. Thank you.
The final inter-party question will be asked by Party Time. Please proceed.
This question is for Party Light. Our platform declares that psychoactive drugs will be made legal for adults over the age of 21, as you believe that these drugs have no long-term effects. However, drugs such as ecstasy have been proven to reduce serotonin levels in the long term, creating greater dependency on psychoactive drugs in order to feel happiness. In addition, drug liberalization policies in Norway have been shown to increase the number of drug-related overdoses, rather than provide safer injection facilities, as your party states. With these facts in mind, how is your drug policy an honest and pragmatic approach to drug use in the United States?
Party Light, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds to enlighten us. Begin.
I'm glad you asked. First of all, Party Light agrees that ecstasy is not a safe drug. That's why we're not legalizing ecstasy. We give a brief list of drugs we are legalizing, and that is not among them. The other drugs we are legalizing, like LSD, actually do not have negative long-term effects. People do die from drugs similar to LSD, but we aren't legalizing those drugs. Because what happens is people buy a drug they believe to be LSD, and that kills them. If we regulate and make so corporations are selling these drugs, we can make sure that people are know what they're getting and that they're not going to die from an unknown drug from an unscrupulous dealer. In addition, Norway has very lenient drug laws, while its neighbor Sweden has very strict drug laws, and they have the exact same addiction rates. This shows us that prohibition doesn't work. Stricter drug laws don't lead to fewer drug addicts. So instead of just making these people, addicts, who have a disease and need the aid of the state, instead of making enemies of the state, we're saying the government's here to help you. The government's here to make sure you're safe. We're gonna make sure that you don't die from your disease. We're going to make sure that you don't have to spend all of your money to support yourself. We're going to make sure that you have a licensed psychiatrist to talk to you and make sure that you can get the help that you need. We're not going to ignore the problem anymore, because that's what every other party is doing. Every other party is just letting these drug addicts die on the streets. We're saying we have to put an end to that. Police aren't working. We're going to attack these economically. This is a public health issue, not a police issue, and that's the mistake we've made for the past 30 years. No one in this room actually can say that the drug policy the US has currently is working. So why are we sticking with it? Why aren't we trying something new?
You have 1 minute to respond.
When Party Light's platform is closely analyzed, it states that they will be legalizing psychoactive drugs for those over the age of 21. Ecstasy is a psychoactive drug. At Party Time, we do not believe that legalizing drugs for adults in the United States is a way to illuminate the future. We believe that this policy will bring us back to the dark ages. Instead, at Party Time, we are interested in a comprehensive drug approach in order to allow our citizens to live in the safest society possible. Drugs such as LSD may not have long-term effects. However, what your body does when you are on these drugs is not safe for our society. We are not only interested in individual drug users, we are interested in the epidemic that drug use will create in the United States. We do not think it is viable to legalize these drugs for all U.S. citizens. However, we do find it necessary to provide better programs for those who are addicts. We will also be implementing drug education programs within our school. We do not focus on scandalized policies in order to earn votes. We focus on solving the real issues at hand. Thank you.
We're almost at the conclusion of this outstanding event. We'll conclude this aspect on domestic policy by providing each party an opportunity of 1 minute to lay out their closing statements. Then we will end with general party closing statements. So far as domestic policy closing statements go, we will begin with Party of the Ages.
lied and added material to their platform. I'd just like to point that out. But also, here at Party of the Ages, we are completely for being socially liberal and fiscally conservative. Whether being radical and completely the only ones redesigning the Social Security system to avoid having it crash, or taking steps in the right direction with their education policy. Thank you. Party of the Ages stands by its policies. This whole process, though, has taught me a lot about American politics and about people in general. At the closing of this whole ordeal, I really learned to just enjoy the sheer awesomeness of all of this, because it really is awesome. And I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank the juniors for being a part of this whole process. And vote Ages. Thank you.
Your domestic policy closing statements, please.
Elysium's policy not only combines fiscally responsible programs, but moral and just policies. Elysium not only provides for the economic growth of the nation, but equality throughout the United States. Elysium not only realizes the importance of paradise for foreign nations, but paradise for you, the American people. Elysium isn't a secret society. Elysium doesn't blind you with false policies. Elysium stops living in the past and we move forward towards a new era of economic growth and equality. Elysium stops looking at time now and we start looking for action now. Welcome to paradise. Vote Elysium.
Party line, your closing statements, please. Party line, your closing statements, please.
I believe in party life. And when I say that, I'm not talking on an existential level, and I'm not just saying it because the people behind me would kill me if I said anything else. I'm saying it because I believe in the America that Party Life promotes. In Party Life's America, we don't simply shove aside the 30,000 deaths per year in Mexico due to drug violence by saying it's sensationalist or a faulty policy. In Party Life's America, we don't shove aside prisoners and leave them to be jobless after they escape prison simply because they made a bad decision in their life. In Party Life's America, we don't shy away from moving forward because we're scared of spending money and doing it fiscally responsibly, which we do. In Party Likes America, I wouldn't slip up and say doo-doo on stage. In Party Likes America, I believe that from the moment Americans first see the light, from the moment they see the light at the end of the tunnel, they'll live in America they are proud of, and I'm proud to be a part of Party Life. Thank you.
Party time. Your domestic policy closing statements, please.
At party time, we recognize that the clock is always ticking. We recognize that it is necessary to grow and to change with the times. However, we also believe in viable domestic policies. We do not believe creating an education system within our prisons that will allow prisoners to not serve their full time as declared by a judge is not a responsible policy. We do not believe relying on energy resources such as thorium-232, which have been proven to be a carcinogen, as a reliable policy. We rely on policies that will work. We rely on policies that will create a brighter future within the United States. We rely on policies that will redefine and reinvent what it means to be an American citizen and the way Americans think about our country. Thank you.
Our final party for domestic policy closing statements, Illuminati.
We are the Illuminati. Noam, Aitatin, Lenarit. A new era has come.
Okay. That concludes our domestic policy portion. Where we stand now is with the general party closing statements. We'll begin with Elysium.
values both innovation and efficiency. But what truly sets us apart from the 4 other parties is our focus on maintaining morally upright policies. Today you heard about Elysium's human trafficking policy, which gives both aid and opportunity to those who have been harmed through no fault of their own. The Fair Care healthcare system, which, despite outrageous claims by Party of the Ages, guarantees affordable medical care to every person while remaining economically responsible. And the many other policies that secure equal rights for every person, regardless of race, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status, once and for all. Elysium places a high priority on bettering the general welfare of everyone for this generation and many generations to come. The future is Elysium. Let your Elysium be ours. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite Party Light to the podium.
President John F. Kennedy once said that change is the law of life, and those who look to the past or present are certain to miss the future. At Party Light, the America of today will not be the United States of tomorrow. Party Light has implemented new ideas, bold ideas, your ideas, to remedy the issues of today. We have taken risks to create truly innovative policies because change comes only to those who are willing to seize opportunity. As President Woodrow Wilson once said, we grow by dreams. Some of us let dreams die, but others lead them to the light, which always comes. We have stepped beyond the dream to become innovators to make a difference in the future. Party Light is leading you to a better, brighter tomorrow. Juniors, UHS, and indeed America, the choice is clear. See bright, think bright, vote Party Light.
General Party closing statements. I'd like to invite Party Time to the podium.
Party time. Our policies are practical, visionary, and necessary to solve the issues of today. It's time for a new platform for the United States to stand on. We have heard the calls from the American people for equality. Our programs will combat income inequality based on gender, as well as fight discrimination based on sexual orientation. It's time to protect the rights of every American. It's time to protect the health and safety of every American. It's time to cooperate with other nations. It's time to invest in the children of the present so they can be the innovators of the future. Party Time answers your call. It's our time. It's your time. It's party time.
Let's invite up Party of the Ages for their general party closing statements.
Since the beginning, man has wanted success. Let us give it to all mankind. Choices we make in the present are powerful simply because it is uncertain how they may affect the future. As we move together into a new age, it is important to remember that we can interact with those to come through our actions today. Every discovery, every bright thought, and every kind gesture that we set loose upon the world has the power to shape human existence in ways we may never come to realize. However, the lack of immediate gratitude will never be an appropriate excuse for inaction. As a party for all the ages, we acknowledge that the past is irreversible, so we must act while we can still guarantee our future. On behalf of all of us here at Party of the Ages, thank you so much for coming, and I'd like to extend that thanks to everyone else at UHS who has made this project such a wonderful experience. Thanks again.
closing statements with Illuminati.
The Enlightenment was a time of newly found knowledge and freshly awoken wisdom, an era of massive societal progress. We've gone for years without reform, wallowing in the stagnancy of a nation depressed by corruption and ineffectual policies. Now there's an opportunity for a new watershed of knowledge, a new age of prosperity. We've enlightened you about the process to achieve this prosperity, and now it is up to you to take up the mantle and reach for new heights. We are the leadership of the past, present, and future, the pioneers of a new era. We are always looking out for you. We are the Illuminati.
University high school students, it's been my pleasure and privilege to stand here as not only the moderator, but as a superintendent of Tucson Unified School District. Whenever I'm asked about the students that we have in the school district, I have the opportunity to go out to different campuses, and I'll say the impression that you've left today is a powerful one. And I'm going to have to be very particular in the words I use to describe how outstanding a presentation this was on the part of those in the audience, on the part of those on the stage, the level of preparation. I know for the juniors that are sitting here, the bar raises each year. It becomes more and more challenging to meet the level of excellence that has occurred on this stage. I've had the opportunity as a Texan to be in Austin, Texas, the capital, during debates on the floor of the legislature. I recently was in Phoenix. I've also had that opportunity in Washington, D.C., and I'll say I haven't been exposed to as complete an argument, as passionate an argument, as well-informed an argument, and as optimistic an argument as I've heard presented by all of the groups here. I look forward to finding out who wins this, but overall, University High School students, I'm humbled and proud to be your superintendent. Thank you.
This concludes the 2014 University High School Senior Debate. UHS juniors, please vote tomorrow in room LL3. Your vote counts. Before we close, I would like to thank once again our Superintendent, H.T. Sánchez, for his superb job as our moderator. Thank you very much. Once again, a big round of applause, please, for stage crew for setting up this wonderful project for us. On behalf of the senior class, I'd like to thank the faculty and staff and administration for allowing us to turn this institution on its ear for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And finally, don't forget we have a culminating event to this activity coming up in about a week. We have our annual inaugural ball at the JCC on Saturday, February 8th. I'd like to see you all there. UHS seniors, if you will stay in the auditorium to help clean up, I'll make some announcements more particular. If you'll just stay seated. The remainder of you, thank you very much for your attendance. Please report to your 4th period class. Thank you.
Bye.